Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here to bring the Monday Night Football Showdown slate between the Rams and the Bucs. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, esports, daily fantasy sports slates. I want to thank you guys again for all the continued support. It is greatly appreciated in these videos, the live streams, as well as on Twitter. The easiest way to support me, since all the content is free, is just to leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload videos, you know when to go live. Also, spread the word. If you have friends that play DFS and you like the content, would appreciate it if you could spread the word. If you guys cannot watch these YouTube videos, I do upload an Apple Podcast. The link is in the description below, which is the DK DFS show. But with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So before we talk about the Monday Night Showdown slate, let's look back at my lineup here from Thursday's Showdown slate. So Thursday's Showdown slate was, I was super excited about this game. It was kind of a disappointing game. It was played a little bit slower than expected. A lot of both teams kind of relied on the running game. We know, like, Arizona, they like running the ball, but Seattle was a team that had been, basically abandoning the running game. They relied a lot on Hyde. So it ended up being a little bit slower than expected. The lineup I was going for here was obviously a shootout. It was a little bit unfortunate that Arizona couldn't score there in the last possession. I went Kyler, the captain. Yeah, there was, both him and Russell Wilson had their floor games. They did. 20 fantasy points each. That is both of their floors. So, kind of a little bit disappointing performances from both quarterbacks, to be honest. You had to make a tough call with those top receivers. It was, between obviously Hopkins, Lockett, and Metcalf. Lockett was the one you wanted. I want Hopkins since I was going Kyler and the captain. Fitzgerald was the value play I mentioned, a really safe value play just because he was going to be on the field the whole time. He actually had a pretty solid game for his price. Swain was kind of the dart thrower. I was hoping for more of a shootout. He was the number 4 wide receiver. Didn't play a ton and obviously didn't do anything for me. DJ Dallas, that value opened up since, we talked about in the live stream, like Hyde was going to be the early down guy. DJ Dallas would be the third down guy. They actually didn't use Dallas a lot. It was basically a lot of Hyde, a little bit of Bo Scarborough, who actually wasn't even on the slate. But yeah, let's take a look at the winning lineup. And it's back-to-back showdown slates now that the winning lineup has been pretty contrarian. So they went Tyler Lockett in the captain with no Russell Wilson. They went Kyler Murray at quarterback, and then 3 running backs with Drake, Edmonds, and Hyde. That is, back-to-back, right? It was 2 slates ago. It was the Vikings where they want the passing attack to win when everyone played Dalvin Cook. This slate, everyone was playing the quarterbacks and the top wide receivers, and it was the running backs that, kind of what came through, right? Drake, 16, Edmonds, 14, Hyde, 17. So, interesting. But yeah, that's kind of the look back there. That's the lineup that won it. I personally, myself, been a little bit of a cold streak on these showdown slates, but again, there's a lot of variance involved, so hoping to bounce back, and I think the slate from Monday is pretty interesting. There's a good amount of different ways you can go with it, so before we talk about the players and the prices, let's take a look at the Vegas odds and the snap counts for each of these teams in their most recent game, and then we can get to the player-by-player breakdown. So, snap counts here, or Vegas odds, I should say, 48 over/under. Bucs are 4.5-point favorites. Both teams are pretty solid defensively, but both offenses can definitely move the ball. So I think this game will be a pretty good game, pretty competitive, pretty fun to watch. So let's take a look at the snap counts here, and we got the headache situation here for the Rams. It's a 3-headed monster. If we're just going off the last game, Malcolm Brown played 41% of the snaps, Darrell Henderson 33%, Cam Akers 26%. Not great, right? So we'll talk about their prices, but hard to feel comfortable with any of the Rams backs, and we know McVay is just super hard to trust anyway. Like, we had that showdown slate earlier in the year where they said they were going to give Cam Akers more involved, and he didn't play at all. So hard to trust what McVay is going to do there with the running backs. Wide receivers is a little bit more clear cut. Now, Cooper Kupp only played 53% of snaps. I think that's just more an outlier. Like, if you go back in recent weeks, he's going to be out there majority of the game. So I'm not overly concerned about that. I think it was just the fact that they were playing from ahead in this one and were focused more on the ground game. But yeah, I do expect Kupp and Woods to play majority of the game. Reynolds as well. Right? They like running through wide receiver sets a lot. And Reynolds' price is coming up, but I think it's still viable. So those three wide receivers you see out there majority of the game. Van Jefferson is the number 4. He played 19% of the snaps. Yeah, nothing you can really go to with confidence there. More of a dart throw. If we look at tight ends, they're going to utilize 2 tight ends a good amount here with Higbee and Everett. Higbee played 84% of the snaps. Everett played 61%. Everett is a lot cheaper, so we'll talk about both those guys and their prices. Johnny Munster, third-string tight end, he played 20% of the snaps that last game. Running backs for Tampa Bay, this is another headache situation because they're just going to go with the hot hand here. Ronald Jones exploded last game for almost 200 yards. He played 59% of the snaps. Leonard Fournette, 36%. But if you go back recent weeks here, let's look back at Week 9. Fournette, 66% to Ronald Jones is 32%. Let's go take a look at Week 8. Fournette, 73%. Ronald Jones, 24%. So they are going to go with the hot hand here, and it makes it just makes this situation for the running backs in Tampa Bay hard to trust. We have Ronald Jones, who is a lot more expensive, but I think that makes Fournette a little bit more viable. Again, we'll talk about them in a sec here. Wide receivers for Tampa Bay. Well, Godwin and Evans are going to play majority of the game. Antonio Brown is the number 3. He's going to play about 50% of the game. He had a good game last game. All 3 wide receivers are in play. Everyone else, though, below that, it's hard to trust. Watson played 5%, Tyler Johnson 9%, Scotty Miller 11% of the snaps. So those guys are just dart throws in the slate, right? We know the Tampa Bay is going to play Godwin, Evans, and Antonio Brown most of the game. Tight ends for the Bucs. Gronkowski, no surprise here. He played 81% of the snaps. Cameron Brate played 36% of the snaps. And Austin Ekeler, surprisingly, played 31% of the snaps. So he shouldn't really be involved too much there in the passing game. So that's kind of it for the snap counts with the teams in their most usual games. So let's talk about players and their prices. We have Tom Brady at $11K. The matchup here against the Rams is not great. The Rams have been pretty stout defensively. But this is Tom Brady. I know he's still getting up there in age. He's been up and down, right? That game against New Orleans, he was absolutely terrible, then came back and just put up an amazing day there for 34 fantasy points. So do I think Tom Brady's a must-play in the slate? No, right? We have a lot of talent on the slate with guys who are cheaper. I think he is still a safe play since he's a quarterback, and quarterbacks on these showdown sites, they do have the highest floor. So for cash games, you probably still get to both quarterbacks here. Definitely not. I don't think you have to play Brady though. Like 11K does feel kind of like a lot, but I think he's someone you can get to. We'll talk about some value plays that we can open up to get Brady in. Brady I think is a safe play. I don't necessarily think he's a must play though. Goff at 9.8. I like the matchup a little bit better for Goff and the Rams than I do with Brady. Goff is you're getting him at a $1,200 discount. He probably doesn't have as much upside, right? He's had one game of over 30 fantasy points. But you're getting him at a $1,200 discount, so that one's close, right? I think Brady's probably, even at this age, is probably still a little bit more talented than Goff, but you're getting a little bit of a discount there. So both quarterbacks, you're going to have to make a tough call. I think the safe route is you probably do play both. And then, again, we'll talk about some value plays to get him in there. Both quarterbacks are definitely viable on this slate, and I don't think either are must play. And would I fade both? Probably not. This game is projected to be more high scoring, right, at 48 over under. So I probably would go at least one quarterback. And again, the safe route to go is to play both quarterbacks in your lineup. If you're just going for safety, for head-to-heads, cash games, right? So let's talk about wide receivers now. Cooper Kupp's at 9.2. You have Cooper Kupp at 9.2 and Robert Woods at 8.2. So this is another tricky one because when they're priced about the same, I always slightly give the edge to Kupp. I think he has a little bit more upside, but now you're getting the $1,000 difference there. Draftkings did a really good job. Like that, it's basically a coin flip for me with Kupp and Woods. Again, if they were priced identical, I would prefer Kupp. But with Kupp being $1,000 more, it's basically a coin flip. These are their 2 main wide receivers. Now, Josh Reynolds has been getting a lot more involved in this offense. We'll talk about him. He is a little bit cheaper, but the price has come way up on him. So with these 2 Ram receivers, again, I don't really have a super strong take. I still think Kupp has a little bit more upside, but you're going to have to pay an extra $1,000 more. It's not like Robert Woods doesn't have upside, right? He's had games where he's put up over 20 fantasy points. So both Rams receivers, I think, look pretty decent here at 9.2 and with Woods at 8.2K. If you're picking between the two, again, you have to make a tough call there. You can kind of say the same thing with these Tampa Bay wide receivers, with Evans, Godwin, and Antonio Brown. Hard to kind of nail down where the majority of the production is going to go, because all three are very, very talented receivers, right? We have Mike Evans at 9K. Last game, he had 6 catches on 11 targets. You have Godwin at 8.4K, who's been pretty consistent this year. Obviously, he's been dealing with some injuries, missed some games. And then you have the newcomer, Antonio Brown, who had a pretty nice day last game. 7 catches and 8 targets. He will play the fewest of the snaps, but he still definitely has upside, even with him getting up there in age. So, again, this is another situation where I don't know if one receiver really stands out more than the other. Like, if you're going to make me pick between these Buccaneers receivers, I'll go Godwin. I think he kind of goes the most overlooked of the three. But, yeah, all three are at similar prices, and all three are pretty similar plays. So, another situation where I wish I had a stronger take, but you have to make, tough decisions with, which Tampa Bay wide receiver you want to go to. You obviously can play more than one, but then you have to sacrifice elsewhere. Ronald Jones at 8.8. So, again, I know he had the big game last game, almost 200 yards on the ground, but they were playing from ahead. This is a situation where, if Tampa Bay falls behind this game, they probably look to Leonard Fournette more. He's been their kind of third down running back, their pass-catching running back. So this is a situation of how you think the game flows. But still, like if Ronald Jones starts off and fumbles the ball, we've seen they have a short leash. Like they will just go to Fournette for a majority of the game. We saw that. I think it was with the Giants when Ronald Jones fumbled early, and then they just stuck with Fournette the rest of the game. So a tricky one. I'm probably going to stay away from Ronald Jones. He is the more talented of the two. Like he is definitely the most talented back of Tampa Bay, but it doesn't matter. It's all about opportunity, and the price point's up. I know he had the big game last game. I think the ownership will be up too. I think I slightly prefer Fournette, but again, that's just because he's a lot cheaper. There's definitely a situation where Ronald Jones has a huge game here, but I think you probably need Tampa Bay to be playing from ahead. So, yeah, not saying Ronald Jones is out of play. I think the ownership will be up, though, after that most recent game. And, again, it's really hard to trust what Tampa Bay is going to do with their running backs. They will go kind of with the hot hand. And we'll talk about Fournette. He is a lot cheaper. So, mention Josh Reynolds, right? The price came way up on him to 6.8. He's been really good these last 3 games. 8, 9, and 10 targets with 4, 4, and 8 catches. I would have liked it if he was, priced what he's been basically all year in, the 3 to 4K range, then I would really like him on the slate. 6.8. Now he's getting up to the point where I think he's a fine option, but I'm not really going to prioritize him, right? You have Reynolds at 6.8 with Woods at 8.2, Kupp at 9.2, so you can pay a little bit more for guys that I think probably have a little more upside. So, yeah, do I think Reynolds is a bad play? No. I think he's just a fine play in the mid-range. I think he goes a little bit overlooked. I would say the same thing about Gronkowski, right? This mid-range on these showdown sites always seems to go a little bit lower owned. Gronk is going to play majority of the game, that He's still a guy that can look to in the red zone. He actually has had a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games. So I think Gronk is a perfectly fine play, right? He's obviously going to have to compete for targets with Brown, with Evans, with Godwin. But he's still a guy that they're looking to a decent amount here. And you're getting him at a little bit of a discount off those top receivers for Tampa Bay. So another situation I'm perfectly fine with Gronk in the mid-range. I think he does go maybe a little bit lower owned just because of the price. Then we get to, now we're kind of getting to more of the value plays. And we're going to talk about all 3 of the Rams running backs. This one it's kind of a guessing game, to be honest. So this is a go with your gut or go with what flows, what works with your lineup, right? If you need someone super, super cheap, then you probably go with Cam Akers. If you feel strong about Henderson or Brown, you can go with them. Henderson's at 5.8. He's the most expensive. He has, throughout the year, has had the most touches, but they've been going down in him recently. Only had 7 carries last game on 1 catch and 1 target. He played actually less snaps than Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown played 41%, Henderson 33%. So, Henderson is probably not a guy I'm super excited about. Malcolm Brown's at 5.4. He had the big game last game, but he had 2 touchdowns. We're not going to expect 2 touchdowns from Malcolm Brown every single slate. If you take those 2 touchdowns away, he has 9 fantasy points. Now, he's probably been their best pass-catching running back, but 5.4K, it's not like we're getting him at an amazing discount. So another situation where, I'm okay with Malcolm Brown. I would probably prefer Brown to Henderson, but neither you're getting at like an amazing discount when it's going to be a three-headed monster. And then finally, we'll talk about Cam Akers here. He's at 2.8. He's been getting a little bit more involved recently here with 9 and 10 carries in back-to-back games. Hasn't really been targeted a ton here. He's the cheapest of the bunch. Yeah, if you need someone super, super cheap, I don't hate Cam Akers, but just know what you're getting into with these Rams running backs. It's kind of a guessing game. You gotta hope whoever you play kind of gets lucky with either touchdown variance or that they just kind of go with the hot hand a bit and ride the guy who you play with. So yeah, Rams and the running backs, it's kind of a guessing game with their situation. Tight end, Higbee's at 4.8. I think he's a perfectly fine play. 4, 4, and 6 targets the last 3 games. He's a guy that will be out the majority of the game. He played 84% of the snaps last game. I think I slightly prefer, though, Gerald Everett for the discount. Everett's at 2.6. Both guys are going to be involved in the passing game. Everett had the big week 2 weeks ago, or I guess the bigger week. He had 5 catches and 9 targets. Last week in Chicago, only 2 catches and 3 targets. So both are similar plays, but when you have the discount, right, you have Gerald Everett at $2,200 difference. I will just prefer Everett. Now, of course, that's not saying Higbee can't outscore him. I slightly like the price better on Everett when they're very similar plays, in my opinion. Then we have Leonard Fournette at 4.4. So he's a guy that they've rolled with. Besides the last game, the 2 previous games, he was the guy that had a lot more touches, right? He had 15 carries and 3 catches and 6 targets against the Giants. Only 1 carry there against New Orleans, but again, they were playing from behind, so they utilized him a lot more, 6 catches and 6 targets. The last game, not as much because they're playing from ahead. So again, this is just a situation where you build your lineup with how you think the game flows. If you think Tampa Bay is going to be playing from ahead in this one, then you can definitely look to Leonard Fournette, or to Ronald Jones. I think Fournette looks better if you think this game maybe they're playing from behind, because he is their third down back, their pass-catching running back. So I do like the price on Fournette. I would prefer him to Ronald Jones, but I think Jones has more upside. But again, we've seen they will go with, if Jones fumbles, they'll go Fournette. Again, Fournette's their pass-down back, so I do slightly prefer the discount there with Fournette to Ronald Jones. As far as the kickers go, both viable plays here. Succop's at 4K. Matt Gay's at 3.6. Yeah, kickers are safer value plays. There's not a lot of amazing value on the slate, to be honest. Like below this range, there's not a lot. Kickers usually a floor of about 5 fantasy points, upside of about 15. So you can definitely go to the kickers. As far as the defenses go, Bucs are at 3.8, Rams are at 3K. Not overly excited about either. The way I play Showdown, obviously I only make one lineup, so usually I don't get to the defenses. If you're mass multi-entering, of course you can consider the defenses. Which defense would I prefer? Probably the Bucs, but it's close. So I'm probably not going to get to either defense, but they're at viable price points right at 3.8 and 3K where you at least can consider them. And then, yeah, we talked about Cam Akers, right? Gerald Everett, I'd slightly prefer him to Higbee for the discount. Cam Brate's at 2.2. He's in play. He had 3 catches, 3 targets, and a touchdown last game. He's not going to play a ton. He played 36% of snaps, but he's shown throughout his career he is a decent pass-catching running back or pass-catching tight end. And he's not going to get targeted a ton, but there's not a lot of amazing value in the slate. So you can definitely consider Brate for value. And then really below that, that's about it. Like below this is just dart throws with like the number 4 receiver for Tampa Bay, whether it be Miller, Johnson, or Watson if you want to take a shot there. Van Jefferson's the number 4 for the Rams. He had 1 catch and 1 target last game. I expect probably 15 to 20% of the touches, or of the snaps. And you can give him a look, but you're not going to feel comfortable with anyone. McCoy's barely going to play, if at all. He's the number 3 back. Johnny Munt's the number 2 tight end. He did, the game against Chicago, he had a couple catches, but that was with Higbee out. Again, he'll be out there a bit, but it's nothing more than a dart throw. And yeah, that's really it. So there's not a ton of great value on the slate if you go up. Like, we'll talk about the value again. I think my favorite value play right now, I guess, is Gerald Everett at 2.6. And then maybe you take a shot in one of those Rams running backs. I do like Fournette, too, a good amount at 4.4. I like that he's obviously the pass-catching running back. I think that does raise his floor a bit, and he's at just a viable price point at 4.4K. So let's talk about captains now. And first, cash games. Again, for cash games, you probably do this, right? You probably play both quarterbacks. And then Running back, normally for cash games, I try to get both quarterbacks. If you're playing cash, I would usually recommend both quarterbacks and like a workhorse running back. But we don't really have a workhorse running back, right? Because with Jones and Fournette, it's all about how the game flows, right? If they're playing from ahead, it's going to be more Jones. Playing from behind, it's going to be more Fournette. So that one's tricky. And then the Rams and the running backs, it's a three-headed monster, so hard to feel comfortable there. So I think you probably go for cash, both quarterbacks, and then maybe one of the top receivers from either Tampa Bay or the Rams. That's probably how I would go about it. For GPPs, we know about 75% of the time, right, it's either a running back or wide receiver in the captain spot in the winning lineup. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can go, right? You have the 3 Rams receivers, I think all have upside. Probably a little bit more with Kupp and Woods, but Reynolds is not out of play. With the Bucs, obviously the main 3 guys all have huge upside with Mike Evans, Godwin, and Antonio Brown. You can even give a look to Gronkowski in the captain if you want to. I think he goes a little bit overlooked in the slate. As far as cheap captains, I think the only guy I would take a shot on it for cheap captain is Fournette, just because, if everything goes right, he has upside, right? If the Bucs fall behind, he's a guy that can go for like 6 to 8 catches and also get some carries here and there too. And at 4.4K, that's cheap enough. So he's the realistic guy, I think, as you could take a shot on if you want to go someone cheap in the captain. If you do go Fournette in the captain, right? Then that leaves you with 8.6K remaining. You can basically jam in like 3 or 4 of these top guys and then kind of go from there. So build your roster with again how you think the game flows and take your chances. Right there's some cheap plays, some cheap value plays, but not a ton. So it's going to be an interesting slate. And as always, guys, I will be live streaming 30 minutes before lock on my YouTube channel, going over everything, answering all your guys' questions, talking about more builds as well. So make sure to check out the live stream, guys. 30 minutes before lock. Tomorrow. But yeah, thanks again, guys. Hope you guys have a good day. I appreciate you guys coming and check out the video, and I will see you all in the live stream.